G'day everyone, my name is Zach and welcome back to Printed. This week we're going to be tackling a really cool conversion that I've been looking to do for a little while now, featuring the Space Wolves faction itself. Now, Space Wolves have been around for quite a long time and have been a significant part of Warhammer 40k's history, basically since it began, and having such an iconic aesthetic, I figured it would be a fun chance to really delve deep into the wolf aspect of them and convert up an Invictor Tactical Warsuit, or as I'd like to call it, an Invictor Tactical Warsuit. So let's jump straight into it. I've been really excited to tackle this for a little while, so instead of just piling it all into one video, I wanted to make sure that I could do this model justice and create a very epic piece as a whole, so I've decided to split this video into two parts. So this first part's going to cover the initial kit bash and everything that's involved, and then the second part is going to involve the actual painting of the model itself and the basing, which I'm super excited to tackle. As with all of our conversions, we've got to start by making sure that we have all the necessary parts to actually build the model. I started by grabbing all the sprues, basing materials, and 3D printed parts that I would need, and kind of had a bit of a once over, and figured out where I would be tackling each part of the conversion from. Now I've gone ahead and 3D printed these bits from Grey Tide Studios, and I will admit, they just, for some reason, really sparked a lot of inspiration for me, and I just wanted to create such an epic model. As you can see, we've got this really cool wolf skull on like a pelt armor panel, these Nordic inspired shoulder plates, and I'm just super excited to jump into this. Now, I figured I'd just show you these guys a little bit closer. As you can see, incredible detail in these. This kit was originally made for the Redemptor Dreadnought, and as both models share a lot of similarities, I figured that we could kind of swap and change out parts where necessary. Before we start removing anything from the sprues, we've obviously got to give the clippers the obligatory test squeezies. I figured I'd start with the body, since honestly this is going to be the main focus of the entire conversion, and we're probably going to spend the most time on this. Was one of the most complicated things to make. Everything else kind of flows in pretty easily. When clipping parts, I made sure to make my cuts away from the model on the actual sprue gate itself, so that we could come in later and then keep them flush with the actual model itself. I tend to find that when I do this, it just leaves it looking a little bit better and kind of reduces the amount of scraping I'm going to have to do with my hobby knife later. At the same time, I did also use my hobby knife to remove any of the mold lines that were on the model. And once those were all done, I just used some of this precision plastic glue. You can basically use whatever plastic glue you want. You can also go as far as using sprue goo to help fill in the gaps, but I had this and it's kind of easier for me to assemble it with it. Since I didn't use sprue goo, there is actually a few more gaps than what I'm used to, but I don't mind. I did, however, slightly mess up on this part of the model. I don't know if you can tell by this clip, but there was a little bit of glue still on the peg itself that I was gluing the hinge into. I mopped up all the excess glue that I could from the joint and just carefully put the piece in, and then every couple of minutes I would move it just to make sure that it wasn't going to fuse and stop me from moving it. I'm an absolute sucker for a gimmick on a model, and I love the moving parts. Even though it's an absolute pain in the ass to paint with it, I just love it, and yeah. Now, once that main body was all assembled, I ended up just coming back through and chucking the shoulders on. This more or less completes the entire main body assembly and lets me start chucking the extra bits and everything on. Now, these panels are made for the Redemptor shoulders, but fortunately enough, they are a perfect fit for the Warsuit. It does kind of look a little bit weird when I put it here, but since I don't have any blue tack with me right now, I can't really test fit them, so I just gently put them on, sort of giving you a general gist of how they look on the model. I'm not going to be gluing any of these armor panels in because I want to come back later and paint them as a sub-assembly. Now, I'm going to show you what took me half an hour to edit. I'm actually pretty proud of this, and if you want to see a little bit more like ASMR building thingies, let me know. Next up, I wanted to just assemble a little pilot inside the guy. I just built his main body and everything after clipping it out and just test fit him in the cockpit. I didn't glue any of him into the actual cockpit itself because I wanted to make sure that he was going to fit, and we could just pull him out later for the ease of painting. Next up, I ended up choosing this head here. It has this really cool hood with like a wolf skull, and using some super glue, I just went ahead and put that bad boy in there. This is basically the easiest part of the conversion. Head swaps are more or less the simplest conversion slash kit bashing thing that you can do on a model, and a fantastic way to start out. your conversion journeys. Now I did end up coming in with some tweezers because his head was super fiddly. His hood was a little bit too big for the socket, but I figured that if I kind of just place it in the right way, it looks decent enough. I did also use some super glue accelerator just because I'm really lazy and I want this thing done hella quick. As you can see, nice and tight in there, not budging anywhere. Next up, we're going to be tackling the legs and the joints around that. I ended up grabbing his little groin plate here and the groin banner, and it didn't really sit flush, so I ended up just coming back through and just carefully trimming off all those rivets, and then I figured I'd just glue it in just so that we could get a nice solid bond. So basically the easiest part of the conversion, I ended up scratching up the print to give it really nice adhesion, and then I did also come in and I started scratching up his groin plate as well. This just lets super glue kind of move into the cracks, and after dry fitting it, to make sure that everything was nice, always dry fit because that's gonna bite me in the butt later, you guys will find out. Now I made sure to hold this piece in for a few seconds just to make sure that that super glue had fully taken hold and that it wasn't gonna move around. This is a pretty simple part of the conversion. So I ended up just grabbing the torso and making sure that everything still fit flush, which it was perfectly fine. Now I did end up going in and just assembling the majority of his cage, and I actually realized that this part here would have been a perfect match for the bottom here. I think it's meant to be for the top of the Redemptor, but since it fit perfectly here, I basically threw a bunch of super glue on and just smacked it right in there. It kind of gives the whole model that saber-tooth tiger look, and I don't know, it just fits really well into the model. And I did also make sure that we could still open everything. As you can see, his little cage opens up and his teeth come down, which for some reason just really, I think is so cool. One of my biggest gripes with the Invictor Warsuit kit is the fact that this guy is literally just sitting out in the open and any man and their dog could take a shot at him and take him out. So I grabbed this plate and just glued it right on. It was a perfect fit, so it was pretty easy to fit on the model. I just chucked a bunch of super glue on the cage and then slotted in, and it was absolutely perfect. I wanted to move on to his legs next, and I'm not a huge fan of the model pose options, so I always come in and I clip these pieces out. This is more or less a guide for the leg, so I just took it off with my clippers and then came in with my knife. And as you can see, we get full range of motion on that bad boy now. For his shoulder pads, I basically just repeated the same steps that I did on his loincloth. I came in, removed all the rivets on this bad boy, just to make sure that we could get a nice, clean, flush connection between the shoulder pad. Now, there's no real guide to this. I more or less just lined it up and then made sure to scratch it up just so it would have that nice adhesion. Same with the shoulder pad itself, and more or less threw a bunch of super glue at it. Now, I didn't dry fit these, and you're about to find out that that was a bad decision. As you can see here, sits in perfectly fine, looks fantastic, and we still maintain that posability of the arm. And ultimately, he's actually looking pretty good so far. I did the same thing on his other shoulder pad here, and as you can see, he's very quickly nearing completion. Now, this is what he looks like with all the armor panels and everything else on. Now, just a reminder, I'm not going to be gluing any of these guys on, as we are going to be coming back in the next video and painting them all together. Now, this is where it bites me in the butt. As you can see here, it doesn't quite fit with the gun. Now, this is a bit of a caveat to building the model and not dry fitting every time you do something. I ended up finding out that I could just clip this piece off, shave it down, and then we are going to lose the posability of the arm, but it doesn't look super bad, and we can now fit the shoulder pad on this guy perfectly. And we do also get to maintain a little bit of that posability. I just made sure to come back through and check that everything was still able to be posed around. Now, it's time for the final assembly. I grabbed his base, his legs, and just made sure that everything was going to look nice and good. I've decided to leave the painting and the basing of him for the next video, because I'd love to go in depth with creating some easy and cool ice effects, and as well as some extra techniques that'll really make the model pop. Now this final assembly is mostly just to dry fit all the pieces, make sure that everything's looking good, and I did kind of struggle a little bit, so I ended up coming back in with some blue tack and fixing them on for the final shot. So let's get ready. Overall, I am really impressed with how cool this model looks. I am absolutely in love with it, and I'm super keen to see how he paints up. I've never actually painted a Space Wolf before, so it's going to be an interesting thing. In the next video, I'm going to be running you guys through how I painted him up, and I'm super excited to show you some really easy techniques that we can use on this model to make it pop and stand out from the rest of our army. Now, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has been supporting the channel so far. We're almost at 500 subscribers as of making this video. I think we're roughly about 15 away. We've got 485, and the channel is just growing incredibly fast, and I'm really appreciative of all the nice comments that everyone has been leaving on the video. And I do apologize for the inconsistent schedule, but I'm hoping that if I can start getting these videos out relatively quickly, we can sort of stick to the Monday posting a little bit more. But yeah, thank you all for the support, and I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. So until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to leave you with a model showcase, and I'll see you later. Happy hobbying, everyone, and catch you later. Bye.